In a town where shiny facades mattered more than actual people, a single mom faced judgmental looks every single night. She worked in silence, serving tables that barely even noticed she existed. But everything changed during a storm, when she crossed the street with her baby in her arms, and the city's elite, who had always looked down on her, finally saw something they never expected. Stay with me until the end to find out what made the whole town stop in its tracks. 12:15 in the morning. Clara Mitchell finally managed to hang her worn-out apron behind the kitchen door at Palmer's Bistro. Her hands were shaking from exhaustion. Her fingers were swollen from carrying heavy trays all night, and the ache in her back crawled up her spine like a hot wave. She took a deep breath, trying to ignore the smell of frying grease that clung to her skin, her hair, her clothes. 8 hours on her feet, 8 hours serving people who barely looked her in the eye. She stepped toward the stained stainless steel sink and washed her hands for the 10th time that night. The cold water stung the tiny cuts that had piled up on her fingers. Small accidents with knives, hot plates, and the rush of someone who couldn't afford to make a mistake. Through the fogged-up kitchen window, Clara looked outside. Ashford's Main Street glowed under the amber lights of old Victorian lampposts. The whole city looked like something out of an old movie, the kind where everyone is happy, wealthy, beautiful. Sleek European cars double-parked in front of art galleries and fancy restaurants. Well-dressed couples laughed loudly on the stone sidewalks, holding wine glasses while waiting for their Ubers. Ashford was small, just 30,000 people, but it was rich, very rich, and everyone knew it. Clara didn't belong to that world, never had, and everyone knew that too. "Are you gonna stand there daydreaming or head out already, Clara?" Maurice's rough voice cut through the kitchen like a blade. He didn't even look up from the inventory sheet he was scribbling across the counter, pen scratching numbers with irritated speed. "I'm going," Clara answered softly, grabbing her worn canvas bag from the corner near the industrial freezer. She pulled on her thin denim jacket, the only one she owned, and zipped it up to her neck. It wouldn't help much. It was freezing outside. November in Massachusetts didn't forgive. Maurice finally lifted his eyes. A middle-aged man with a soft belly, thinning hair combed to the side, deep under-eye circles, and a permanent expression that looked seconds away from firing someone. "You forgot to clean table 6, he said flatly. Clara blinked. "I cleaned it twice. Then you cleaned it badly. There's sauce left in the corner." She breathed in, counted to 3. "Maurice, I need to get my son. Mrs. Ida can only stay until 12:30. And I need you to do your job right, Clara. Having a kid doesn't give you the right to slack off here." The words hit her like a slap, but Clara was used to it. Comments like that came almost every night. "Okay," she whispered. "I'll clean it again." She went back to the dining room, grabbed the cloth, and wiped table 6 again. There was no sauce. There never was. But she cleaned it anyway, because arguing with Maurice meant losing her job. And losing her job meant not paying rent. And not paying rent meant the streets. When she finished, she returned to the kitchen. Maurice was gone, leaving behind a pile of dirty dishes in the sink and the lights still on. Clara took a slow breath, grabbed her bag again, and pushed open the back door. The cold wind hit her face like an invisible punch. Then the first raindrops fell, thick, heavy, freezing. Clara looked up at the dark sky, starless, covered in low clouds that seemed ready to swallow the whole city. "No. Not now," she whispered, pulling her hood over her head. But the rain didn't care what Clara wanted. In seconds, it turned into a downpour. She clutched her bag strap tighter and started to run. Ashford's streets were well lit, but deserted at this hour. The only sounds were the rain pounding on the asphalt and the awnings of the closed shops. She needed to reach the 7th Avenue Baptist Church, 3 blocks. Just 3. But with that storm, it felt like forever. Her sneakers were soaked in under a minute. Cold water crawled up her ankles, clinging to her socks. Every step was a battle. But Clara didn't stop. She couldn't. Noah was waiting for her. Her baby. Her little boy. 8 months old. Big dark eyes. A toothless smile that melted anyone's heart. The only reason Clara was still standing. She turned the corner and finally saw the small red brick church, its side door lit by a flickering yellow bulb. Clara hurried up the 3 cracked concrete steps and pushed the door open. Inside, the damp warmth of the old heater wrapped around her like a hug. smell of chamomile tea and dust. Mrs. Ida sat in a rocking chair, cradling Noah, who was sleeping peacefully in her arms. "Sorry, Mrs. Ida," Clara said, breathless, pulling down her wet hood. "Maurice held me longer tonight." Ida was a black woman in her late 60s, gray hair in a low bun, gold-framed glasses hanging from a chain around her neck. She smiled warmly. "No need to apologize, dear. This boy is an angel. Slept the whole night." Clara felt her eyes burn, not from sadness, but gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered, gently picking Noah up. He stirred a little but didn't wake. She wrapped him in the thin plaid blanket she'd brought that morning, the only one she owned, and held him close against her chest. "You're going out in this weather?" Ida asked, frowning. "Let me call my grandson. He can give you a ride." "No, you don't need to bother. We'll be quick." "Clara, you're soaked." "I know, but we'll manage. Thank you again, truly. You're an angel." Ida sighed but didn't insist. She knew Clara well enough to know the girl had too much pride to accept help easily. "Go with God, my child," Ida said, making the sign of the cross in the air. Clara gave a small smile and stepped outside. The rain had gotten worse. The wind now hit from the side, splashing water straight into her face. Clara pulled the blanket over Noah's head, shielding him as best she could, and started walking. Their apartment was across town, in Warren Heights, a cluster of small buildings with faded facades, tiny windows, and rusty metal staircases. It was where the people who worked for Ashford's elite lived, invisible, needed, disposable. But to get there, Clara had to cross the heart of Ashford, the rich part, the part that sparkled, the part that never saw her. She held Noah tight, lowered her head, and kept going. She didn't know that, at that exact moment, across the street, someone was watching her from a second-floor window. A man in a dark suit, a glass of whiskey in his hand, eyes fixed on the drenched woman running through the storm. He didn't know yet, but soon he would, and when he did, the whole town would stop. Clara crossed Main Street with Noah pressed to her chest, shielded by the plaid blanket that was already soaked at the edges. The baby whimpered softly, frightened by the roar of the storm. His warm little body trembled against hers. "Shh, sweetheart, we're almost home," she whispered, kissing his forehead while dodging a giant puddle in front of the pharmacy. But almost home was a lie. They still had at least 15 minutes of walking, and every minute in that rain felt endless. The city, usually buzzing during the day, was almost empty now. Almost. Because Ashford never truly slept. There was always someone leaving a late dinner, always a group of friends saying goodbye outside an expensive bar, always eyes, and Clara ran right into them when she turned onto Crestwood Drive. There on the sidewalk in front of the Ashford Country Club, a group of 5 women stood under a beige awning with gold trim. All of them wore Italian wool coats, knee-high leather boots, and handbags worth more than Clara made in 3 months. Their hair looked flawless, glossy, wavy, untouched by the humidity that frizzed Clara's instantly. They chatted and laughed loudly, wine glasses in hand, waiting for their husbands to bring the cars from the underground garage. Clara lowered her head and tried to slip by unnoticed, but that was impossible. A soaked woman running in the storm with a baby in her arms always drew attention. Always. "Look at that," one of them murmured, nudging her friend with her elbow. Clara pretended she didn't hear, quickened her pace. "It's the waitress from Palmer's," another one said, smirking with that kind of smile that hid nothing but thinly veiled contempt. "The one who asked for tips with that poor me face," a third added, laughing as she took a sip of red wine. "Probably out there trying to get some sympathy again," said a fourth, lighting a long, thin cigarette under the awning. "You know how it is. Single mom, no dad around, always has some dramatic little story to tell." The others laughed, loudly, not caring whether Clara heard or not. Actually, maybe hoping she did. Clara felt heat rush to her face. Her hands tightened around Noah, not enough to hurt him, but enough to remind herself that he needed her steady, whole, unshaken. She always heard, always. But she'd learned, in the hardest way, that answering back changed nothing. People like that didn't change their minds. Didn't matter what you said. Didn't matter who you were. To them, Clara was just another one, another poor girl, another one who didn't take care of herself, another one who deserved to be exactly where she was. Clara lowered her head even more and kept walking. But then a silver convertible slowed down beside her. The engine purred. Low, smooth, expensive. The electric window rolled down slowly, revealing a young man, maybe 25, blonde hair slicked back, and a smile way too white to be real. "Hey!" he called out, trying to sound friendly, but something off lingered underneath. "Hey, miss! You need a ride?" Clara didn't stop, didn't look. "Miss, I'm talking to you!" he insisted, matching her pace with the car. "You're soaked, and with a baby, too! Let me give you a ride!" "No big deal." Clara finally stopped and turned to him. Her eyes were tired, but steady. "No, thank you." "You sure? You're gonna catch pneumonia out here." "I said I don't need it." His smile faltered. For a split second, Clara saw something different in his face. Annoyance, as if she had refused a favor he was offering purely out of kindness, and that this was somehow a personal insult. "All right then," he said with a shrug. "Your choice." He sped up, and as he did, the rear tires splashed a wave of filthy gutter water straight onto Clara's legs. Cold, brown, muddy water soaked her jeans up to her knees. The women under the awning burst into laughter. Clara stood still for a second, shaking, not from the cold, but from held-back rage. She took a breath, once, twice, 3 times. Noah whimpered again, and that was enough to pull her back to herself. She kept walking, didn't look back. But across the street, from the second-floor window of a modern art gallery, a man was watching everything. He held a glass of whiskey in his right hand, eyes fixed on Clara's figure slowly fading into the rain. He frowned. There was something familiar about that woman, something he couldn't name, but it bothered him. And then he saw it, not clearly, but enough. The blanket slipped a little from the baby's face, and for a fraction of a second, the man saw the child's profile, the defined eyebrows, the delicate chin, the tiny dimple in the center. He froze. The whiskey glass almost slipped from his hand. "No," he whispered to himself, voice trembling. "No, that can't be." He stepped away from the window, grabbed his phone from his suit pocket with shaky hands, and typed quickly. The message was sent to a WhatsApp group with 17 members, all businessmen, all influential, all part of Ashford's invisible elite. The message read, "Need to confirm something. Anyone know the waitress from Palmer's? The one who works nights?" The reply came in less than 30 seconds. "Something Clara. Why?" He didn't answer, just stared out the window, watching Clara disappear into the storm. And then he saw someone else. Another man, across the street, standing under a storefront awning, also watching Clara. And this man he knew very well. It was Daniel Harrington, the most powerful businessman in Ashford, and the man whose life was about to be turned upside down. Clara turned the corner onto Elm Street, where the houses grew even larger and the lawns even greener, even in the middle of winter. Here, even the rain seemed to fall more gently, as if respectful of property value. Colonial mansions of 2 and 3 stories towered above her, with wide porches, white columns, and wrought iron gates. Warm lights glowed in the windows, creating a kind of cozy luxury Clara had never felt in her life. She held Noah closer and kept going, ignoring the ache in her soaked feet. But then she passed in front of the Ashford Plaza Hotel, a red brick building with mirrored glass doors and a gold awning covering the main entrance. Under that awning, 6 middle-aged men smoked expensive cigars, shielded from the rain. All wore tailored suits, gold watches, and expressions of men used to being obeyed. Clara tried to slip by unnoticed, but one of them lifted his eyes and froze. His cigar nearly fell from his hand. "Hold on," he muttered, taking a step forward, eyes locked on Clara. The other men turned, curious. "What is it, Richard?" one of them asked, impatient. "That woman?" Richard nodded subtly toward Clara. "Look at the baby." "What baby?" "Look closely. Look at the kid's face." The men squinted through the rain, trying to see past the soaked blanket covering Noah. And then the blanket slipped. Just a little, but enough. Noah's little face was exposed for 2, maybe 3 seconds. Those big dark eyes, those perfectly defined eyebrows, the delicate chin with that small, unmistakable dimple in the center. One man choked on his cigar. "My God," he whispered. "No way," another murmured, voice shaking. "It is. Look closely. He looks exactly like Daniel." The silence that fell between them was heavy as lead. Clara felt it, felt the eyes on her, felt the air shift. She quickened her pace, almost running now, heart pounding unevenly. She knew this day would come, always knew. From the moment she saw Noah for the first time at the hospital, those dark eyes staring back at her, eyes that weren't hers, but she never imagined it would happen like this, soaked, exhausted, alone. "Hey!" one of the men shouted behind her. "Hey, miss! Wait!" Clara didn't stop. She tightened her hold on Noah and turned the corner, disappearing into the shadowy side street. But the damage was already done. Richard grabbed his phone with trembling fingers and typed furiously. He didn't care if his thumbs stumbled over the keys. He had to send this message, right now. He opened the WhatsApp group, Ashford Council, a secret group made up of the 15 most influential men in town, and wrote, "You guys won't believe what I just saw. The waitress from Palmer's, her kid, looks exactly like Daniel Harrington." The message sent. Less than 10 seconds later, replies exploded. "What? You're sure? Send a pic. Dude, is this real? Someone tell Daniel." Richard typed again, hands shaking with adrenaline. "I saw it with my own eyes. The kid is identical to him. Same eyes, same dimple, same eyebrows. No mistake." The group erupted. Messages came so fast his phone froze for a second. Then someone sent a voice note. It was Thomas Brightwell, owner of the city's biggest real estate firm and Daniel Harrington's close friend. "Guys, listen. I've known Daniel for 20 years. If this is true, this will destroy him. And the Morrison family, too. You know what this means, right? His marriage? His reputation? Everything goes down the drain. Someone has to warn him before this leaks." But it was already too late, because right at that moment, the news was spreading, not just in the businessmen's secret group, but in the wives' groups, in the daughters' groups, in the employees' groups, in the neighbors' groups. In 15 minutes, half of Ashford already knew. The invisible waitress nobody cared to know was carrying Daniel Harrington's secret child. And Daniel was sitting in his 3-story mansion on Crestwood Drive, having dinner with his wife Victoria and her parents, when his phone began vibrating non-stop. He picked it up absently, expecting a work text, and froze. 17 unread messages, all urgent. He opened the first one, and his world crumbled. Daniel Harrington sat at the head of the massive mahogany dining table, built for 12 but holding only 4 tonight. The crystal chandelier cast soft shadows across the walls, decorated with imported French wallpaper. Dinner was elegant: grilled salmon with asparagus, wild rice, and a red wine from a Napa Valley vineyard. $400 a bottle. Everything perfect, everything controlled, everything exactly as it was supposed to be. Victoria, his wife, sat to his right, 32, with sleek blonde hair falling perfectly over her shoulders, wearing a black silk dress that cost more than most people earned in a month. She laughed at something her father, Richard Morrison, had said about renovating the East Wing. Something about Italian marble versus Greek marble. Victoria's mother, Margaret, nodded along while cutting her salmon into tiny, precise bites, each motion surgical. Daniel wasn't listening. He stared at his plate, pushing the rice around with his fork, mind drifting. Then his phone buzzed. Once, twice, 3 times, 4. He frowned and picked it up from beside his wine glass. The screen lit up with 17 unread messages, all from the Ashford Council group. A strange pressure tightened in his chest. That group was only used for urgent matters, things that couldn't wait, things involving money, power, or trouble. He unlocked the phone, face carefully neutral. Then he read the first message. "You guys won't believe what I just saw. The waitress from Palmer's, her kid, looks exactly like Daniel Harrington." The fork slipped from his hand and hit the plate with a metallic clink that echoed through the dining room. Victoria stopped mid-sentence and looked at him. "Daniel?" she said, her voice soft but edged with irritation. "Are you okay?" He didn't answer. He kept staring at his phone, eyes locked on the screen, breath stuck in his throat. He scrolled to the next message. "I saw it with my own eyes. The kid is identical to him. Same eyes, same dimple, same eyebrows. No mistake." His heart started pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. He scrolled again. A photo. Blurry, taken from far away, through the rain, but clear enough. A drenched woman. Dark hair plastered to her face, a plaid blanket in her arms, And inside that blanket, a baby. Daniel zoomed in with shaking fingers, and he saw that face. That damn face he recognized instantly. The dark eyes, the sharp eyebrows, the chin with the dimple in the center, just like his father's, just like his grandfather's. "No!" he whispered, so low no one heard. But the photo didn't lie. And the woman, he knew that woman, Clara, the quiet waitress with tired eyes who served his coffee at Palmer's every morning when he went there before his meetings. The same woman he ran into on a hot summer night almost 2 years ago after a stupid fight with Victoria that sent him driving aimlessly, full of anger, frustration, and a loneliness that sat in his chest like a stone. He'd stopped at a roadside bar, a simple place far from Ashford where nobody knew him. He drank too much, and then she showed up. Clara, working as a waitress there too. She served his table. They talked. She listened. She didn't judge. She didn't try to impress him. She just listened. And Daniel, for the first time in years, felt like someone actually saw him. One thing led to another. It was one night. Just one. He woke up the next morning in a cheap motel room with Clara asleep beside him, hair spread over the pillow, breathing soft and steady. He got dressed in silence, grabbed his wallet, left $200 on the nightstand, and walked out without looking back. 2 weeks later, Clara showed up at Palmer's. She tried to talk to him. But Daniel pretended he didn't know her. Pretended that night never happened, because acknowledging it meant complicating things. And his life was already complicated enough. He never spoke to her again. And now he was staring at a photo of a baby with his face. "Daniel?" Victoria's voice climbed, sharper now. "Are you even listening to me?" He lifted his eyes slowly. Victoria was looking at him with a mix of irritation and concern. "Sorry, He cleared his throat, trying to steady his voice. "Work. It's just work. In the middle of dinner?" Margaret, his mother-in-law, raised one perfectly shaped eyebrow. "That can't wait, Daniel." "No," he said too quickly. "It can't." He pushed his chair back so abruptly it almost tipped over. He grabbed his phone and his car keys from the sideboard near the door. "Where are you going?" Victoria asked, her voice jumping an octave. "Daniel, we're in the middle of dinner. I have to take care of something. Now? It's raining. It's urgent." "More urgent than your family?" Daniel stopped at the door, turned back toward her, and for the first time in 5 years of marriage, Victoria saw something in his eyes that scared her. Panic. "Yes," he said quietly. "It is." And he walked out before anyone could ask another question. His car, a sleek black BMW, was waiting in the garage. He got in, started the engine, and pulled out fast, the tires screeching on the wet pavement. He had to find Clara. He had to see. He had to know. And more than anything, he had to stop this from becoming the disaster he already knew it would be. But it was too late, because the whole town of Ashford already knew. And this town didn't forgive secrets. Clara was 2 blocks from home when she saw the headlights. 2 sharp beams of white light cutting through the darkness like blades, coming straight toward her. She stopped, shielding her eyes with her free hand while holding Noah tighter with the other. The black car, big and expensive-looking even in the rain, pulled up right in front of her, completely blocking the narrow sidewalk. The engine growled low for a second before shutting off. The driver's door opened with a heavy thud, and then he stepped out. Daniel Harrington. Dark gray suit soaked in seconds, brown hair stuck to his forehead, eyes wide, rimmed red, breathing hard like he'd just run a marathon. Clara's stomach twisted. "No," she whispered, taking a step back. "No, Daniel, not here. Not now." But he was already walking toward her, hands raised like he was trying not to scare off a wild animal. "Clara, I need to—" His voice came out rough, broken. "I need to see." "See what?" she shot back. But she already knew. Of course she knew. "The baby," Daniel said, eyes glued to the plaid blanket wrapped around Noah. "I need to see the baby." "No. Clara, please." "I said no," she shouted, and Noah, startled by her tone, started crying loudly, his little face turning red. Daniel froze, his hands still raised, his expression shattered. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm sorry, I saw the picture. Everyone saw it. I didn't know, Clara. I swear I didn't know." She glared at him, eyes blazing with contained fury. "You didn't want to know," she spat, the words like poison. "When I tried to tell you, you ignored me. You pretended I didn't exist. Pretended that night never happened. Daniel dropped his head, rain streaming down his face, mixing with something that looked a lot like tears. "I know," he muttered. "I know. And I was a coward." "You think?" "I was scared, Clara. My life, my marriage, my reputation." I panicked. "And you think I didn't?" Clara stepped closer, her voice shaking with emotion. "You think it was easy for me? Finding out I was pregnant? Alone? Broke? With nobody? You think I wasn't terrified?" Daniel said nothing, just stood there drenched and wrecked. "But I didn't run," Clara went on, tears now mixing with the rain on her face. "I didn't pretend nothing was happening. I owned it. I raised him. By myself. While you went back to your perfect life, I was working 3 shifts to pay for diapers. While you were eating in fancy restaurants, I was sharing a tiny apartment with another mom who didn't have anyone either. While you slept peacefully at night, I was pacing the floor with him screaming from hunger because I didn't have money for formula." Her voice broke at the end, and she had to stop, breathe, pull herself together. Daniel was crying now, not hiding it, not even trying. "I'm so sorry," he said, barely audible over the rain. "I'm so sorry, Clara. I don't have an excuse. I was a monster." She didn't answer. Noah's cries grew louder, and Clara rocked him automatically, whispering soft words in his ear, soothing him. Daniel watched, and something inside him cracked, wide open. The way she held the baby, the way she shielded him, the way she was everything he should have been. "Can I—" He swallowed hard, voice breaking. "Can I see him? Just once. Please." Clara hesitated. Every part of her screamed to say no, to turn around and walk away, to never again look at the man who had abandoned her when she needed him most. But then she looked at Noah, at his wet little face, his dark eyes, the dimple in his chin, and she realized something. Noah deserved to know who his father was, even if his father didn't deserve to know him. "Just 1 minute," she said, voice firm. "And only because he's cold." She adjusted the blanket and slowly, very slowly, held Noah out to Daniel. Daniel took the baby with trembling hands, like he was holding something made of glass that might shatter at any second. And when he looked down at that small, wet, scared little face, he broke. The tears came hard, uncontrollable. His mouth opened, but no words came, just ragged, soundless sobs shaking his whole body. "Hey," he whispered, voice shattered in 1,000 pieces. "Hey, little guy, hey." Noah stopped crying. Those dark eyes locked onto Daniel's face, studying him with that innocent curiosity only babies have. And then something impossible happened. Noah smiled, a toothless, tiny smile, but real. Daniel let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. He smiled at me." Daniel looked up at Clara, eyes red, completely undone. "He smiled." Clara didn't say a word, just watched, arms crossed over her soaked chest, bracing herself. "What's his name?" Daniel asked, voice trembling. "Noah, Noah," Daniel repeated like he was tasting the name. "Noah." He stood there, holding his son in the rain, while the rest of the world seemed to fade. But the world hadn't faded, because across the street, hidden under awnings, porches, and balconies, there were people. Lots of people. Neighbors, acquaintances, strangers, all with phones in their hands, all recording, all watching the moment when Daniel Harrington, the most powerful man in Ashford, held his secret child for the very first time. And in less than 5 minutes the video was already online, shared, commented, going viral. The whole city was watching, and there was no going back. 5 minutes. That's all it took for the story to explode. Clara was still standing there in front of Daniel, arms outstretched, waiting for him to give Noah back. But around them, the street that had seemed empty just moments before was now full. At least 30 people, maybe 40. Some had stepped out of parked cars. Others came from shops that were already closed, but where owners were still inside finishing their cash count. Others just appeared, as if pulled by some invisible signal. Everyone wanted to see. Everyone wanted to know. Everyone wanted to be part of the biggest scandal Ashford had seen in years. "Is that really him?" someone whispered in the crowd. "Yeah, look at the car. That's his BMW." "Oh my God, Victoria's gonna lose her mind." Does she already know? Girl, everybody knows. The video's already up on Instagram. Clara felt her blood turn to ice. She looked around, and only then did she realize half the people there had their phones up, recording. "Give him back," she said, her voice low but steady. Daniel hesitated. His eyes were still locked onto Noah, like he was trying to memorize every detail of that tiny face. "Daniel," I said, "give him back. Now." He blinked, like he was waking from a trance, and handed the baby to her with exaggerated care. Noah was calm now, almost asleep again, soothed by the warmth of her body. Clara held him tight and stepped back, trying to get away, but the crowd blocked the sidewalk. "Excuse me," she said, trying to pass. No one moved. "Hey, miss!" A man in his 50s with a big belly and a dirty cap stepped forward. "Is it true that baby is his?" Clara didn't answer. "Answer us!" someone else yelled. "We have the right to know." "You have no right at all," Clara replied, firm. "This is none of your business." "Of course it is," snapped a woman with short hair and thick glasses. "He's a married man. He cheated on his wife. We deserve the truth." "The truth?" Clara stepped forward and looked her straight in the eyes. "You want the truth? The truth is, you never cared about me. Never cared about my baby. You just want gossip. Something to talk about. Something to judge. But his life," she pointed to Noah, "is not your entertainment." A heavy silence fell over the crowd. Then someone shouted, "Tell the truth, Harrington. Is that your kid or not?" All eyes turned to Daniel. He stood there, drenched, shattered, trembling, hands buried in the pockets of his soaked blazer, shoulders slumped. He could lie. He could make up a story. He could walk away, get in his car, and let lawyers clean everything up later. He had money. He had power. He had influence. But then he looked at Clara, and he saw something in her eyes that stopped him cold. Not fear, not anger, disappointment, like she already knew what he would say, like she already expected him to deny it, again. And Daniel realized he could lose a lot that night, his reputation, his marriage, his place in the city. But if he denied this, he would lose himself. So he took a breath and spoke. "Yes." The word came out quiet but clear. The crowd erupted. "Yes," he repeated louder, turning to face everyone. "He's my son." Phones multiplied, camera flashes, shouts, calls being made, messages sent, chaos. Daniel raised his hands, asking for silence. Slowly, bit by bit, the crowd calmed. "I made mistakes," Daniel said, voice shaking but steady. "A lot of mistakes. And the biggest victim," he pointed to Clara, "was this woman right here." Clara's eyes widened. "She raised my son alone," Daniel continued. "She worked herself to exhaustion. She endured your judgment, our judgment, while I pretended none of this existed, while I went back to my comfortable life, while I lied to myself." He took a breath, tears forming again. "So, now I want to do what's right." He turned to Clara. "Clara, I want to give you a house, a car, financial support, everything you and Noah need. No conditions, no contracts, just let me make this right. Please." The crowd erupted in whispers. "He's just trying to fix his image. At least he's owning up to it. Bet his lawyers already drafted agreements." But Clara said nothing. She looked at Daniel, at Noah, at the entire city staring at them. Then, with a calm that even surprised herself, she said, "No." Silence. Absolute silence. Even the rain seemed to pause. "What?" Daniel's eyes widened. "Clara, I don't want your money," she said, her voice sharp as steel. "I don't want you buying yourself a clean conscience. I don't want to be another bill you pay to hide your mistakes." "But I'm not trying to hide. Then what are you trying to do?" Daniel went silent. Clara stepped closer, eyes locked onto his. "If you want to make things right, Daniel, it's not with money. It's with presence, with respect, with admitting, every single day, that you messed up. Not just with me, with him." She looked at Noah, sleeping peacefully against her chest, unaware of the storm around him. "I don't need your pity," Clara said softly. "I don't need your charity. I need you to be a father. And if you can't do that, then nothing else matters. No amount of money will fix what you broke." The crowd stayed silent. Then, slowly, someone started clapping, then another, and another. In seconds, the entire street was applauding. Clara looked around, confused, surprised, almost in disbelief. The same people who mocked her, ignored her, treated her like she was invisible, now, finally, Saw her. Really saw her. The applause went on for nearly a full minute. Clara just stood there holding Noah, unsure what to do. She wasn't used to attention, wasn't used to approval. For so long, she had been the invisible woman, the waitress nobody noticed, the single mom everyone judged, and now, suddenly, they saw her. But she didn't want to be seen like this, didn't want to be the center of a spectacle, didn't want her life to become entertainment. She just wanted to go home. So, without another word, Clara began walking. The crowd parted for her like the Red Sea. Some still held their phones, recording. Others just watched in respectful silence. Daniel stood there in the middle of the street, hands by his sides, face wet, not just from rain. "Wait!" he called out, voice rough. Clara stopped, didn't turn around. "Where are you going?" he asked. "Home. Let me take you." "No. Clara, please. At least let me do that." She turned slowly, her tired eyes meeting his. "Daniel, you don't get it," she said, her voice soft but firm. "I don't want to be saved by you. I want to build my own life, with or without you. But if you really want to be in Noah's life, then show up. Not with money, with time, with presence, with truth." Daniel swallowed hard. "I will show up," he said, voice trembling. "I swear. I'll do this right." Clara studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "Okay, but not today. Today I just want to go home and put my son to bed. He needs to sleep, and so do I." She turned and walked again. Daniel stood there, watching her disappear into the rainy darkness, carrying the child he had only just met. And for the first time in his life, Daniel Harrington felt the full weight of his choices. Meanwhile, across town, inside the Harrington mansion, Victoria sat in the living room, phone in hand, eyes glued to the screen. She had watched the video 5 times, each time hoping it was fake, each time hoping it was a mistake. But it wasn't. It was Daniel, holding a baby, crying, admitting everything, in front of the whole world. Her phone rang. Her mother. "Victoria, honey, did you see—" "I saw," she cut in, her voice cold as ice. "Are you okay?" "No. Come over, sweetheart, we'll talk." "I don't want to talk, Mom. I want him out of my life." She hung up and sat there, alone in the living room of a mansion that suddenly felt empty, while her marriage collapsed around her. 3 weeks later, the sun was shining over Ashford, melting the last bits of snow from the week before. The trees were still bare, but the air smelled like spring, wet soil, budding flowers, life returning. Clara pushed the door to Palmer's Bistro at 6 p.m., ready for another shift. But something was different. The first thing she noticed were the looks. Before, when she walked in, people looked away, pretended she wasn't there. Or worse, looked at her with that silent judgment that said everything without a word. Now, people waved. "Hi, Clara." Mrs. Patterson, a regular with gray hair and reading glasses on a chain, waved from a table by the window. "How's Noah?" Clara blinked, surprised. He's good. Thank you for asking." "That's wonderful." Mrs. Patterson smiled warmly. "Listen, I have some baby clothes my grandson outgrew. They're his size. Can I bring them next time I come in?" A lump formed in Clara's throat. "Really? I'd love that. Thank you so much." "Oh, darling, it's my pleasure." Clara walked to the counter, still processing everything. Maurice was at the register, as always, but when he saw Clara, something bizarre happened. He smiled. Not a big smile. Not warm, but a smile. "Clara," he said, sliding a brown envelope across the counter. "This came for you today." She frowned and picked it up. Inside was a handwritten note, and 5 crisp $100 bills. The note said, "Thank you for reminding us that courage has no price. Use this however you want. You deserve it. A group of Ashford moms." Clara felt her eyes burn. She folded the envelope slowly and slipped it into her bag. "Maurice, do you know who left this?" He shrugged. "No idea. But a lot of people have been asking about you these past weeks. I think you kind of became an inspiration." Clara didn't know what to say. The shift went by quickly, and every time she served a table, people were kind. Some left bigger tips. Others asked about Noah. Others simply smiled. For the first time in a very long time, Clara didn't feel invisible. When her shift ended, Clara walked out the back door and headed toward the community center where Noah stayed. But when she got there, there was a large box sitting at the door. Inside, baby clothes, diapers, toys, hygiene products, and a simple note for little Noah from the whole town. Clara knelt down and opened the box slowly, running her hand over the items carefully. There were brand new onesies, soft blankets, pacifiers, creams, everything she needed and never had the money to buy. She sat there on the community center steps and cried, not from sadness, from relief, because, for the first time, she wasn't alone. That night, when Clara walked home carrying Noah in her arms and the donation box under her arm, she saw something that made her stop. A black car, parked at the end of the street. Daniel stepped out, hands tucked into his coat pockets. "Hey," he said softly, hesitant. "Hey," Clara replied. They stood there for a moment, staring at each other in silence. I wanted to know if I can visit him," Daniel said, his voice low. "Once a week, or whenever you allow. No pressure, no money involved. I want to try to be what I should have been from the start." Clara took a deep breath. "Are you sure? Because if you start this, and then walk away, I won't let you hurt him again." "I'm sure," Daniel said, firm. "I messed up. I admit that. But I want to fix it. Not for the town. Not for my reputation. For him, and for you." Clara studied him for a long moment. Then slowly, she nodded. "Okay. Saturday, 3 o'clock. At the park." Daniel smiled. A small smile, but a real one. "Thank you, Clara. Really." She nodded back and climbed the stairs to her building, carrying Noah and the box. Daniel stayed there, watching her go inside, and for the first time in weeks, he felt something close to hope. The rain had stopped, the sky was clear, and Clara was finally being seen. Sometimes the strength the world looks down on is the very strength that holds everything together. No one truly knows the value of a mother until they see what she carries, not just in her arms, but in her heart. Clara didn't need money to prove her worth. She needed courage. And it was that courage that changed the entire town. Because in the end, it's not the facades that matter. It's the people behind them. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear that strength comes from the journey itself. And if you want more stories like this, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.